Hey guys, Callan from Columbus Models again, and we are back with another video. This time, going to be building this Trumpeter 72nd scale Sd.Kfz 184, also known as the Ferdinand. Some of you might be sitting there going, well, actually that's an elephant, and well, actually they're the same thing in a way. Ferdinands are the early version, elephants are the later. But I picked this kit up for about $5 online, and I figured, why not give it a go? So let's get into it. First off with the hull, and we are working on the suspension. The Ferdinand worked on the Tiger Porsche suspension because it was the Tiger Porsche hull, meaning it could go forward and backward at the same speed, which for these were usually 0 because they like to set themselves on fire. And then coming on along, we are starting to build up the upper hull with the sides. The hull sides are broken up into multiple pieces, as you can see here, and they all fit together fairly nicely. The fit on this kit is okay, I guess. So for this one, it's not so much a bath. It's sort of a pseudo bathtub style, as you'll see a bit later on. But the lower hull is built up with about 6 to 7 major parts. So putting on the rear of the superstructure at the moment, it does have a lot of angles and flat edges to this build. So you do have to be careful when trying to put it together that everything lines up fairly well. And the for this kit, it's, as I said, it's okay. Putting on the front here, you can see there's a bit of flash I was trying to scrape off, and it's a bit of a tight fit in areas and a bit loose in others. It's for $5 online, it's not bad. Putting on the front, still working on the front now. So for the Ferdinand did not have a bow gunner, just had a radio operator next to the driver. The elephants ended up with a bow gunner. Putting on the top now. So the main superstructure that houses the gun, this comes as just a simple part that if you glue in properly will be able to move up and down. I choose to not have it move. I usually glue my barrels so they don't move around because over the years they do start to wear and tear. Putting on the gun mantlet ring as well as the gun shield. The elephants had these very weird little gun shields, so that just slips on. Again, fairly well fit. Seam lines here and there. It's definitely an older kit. And then the upper and lower hull get mated together. Fit generally okay. And we're already on our painting stage. So first up, I'm using the Tamiya Desert Yellow as a base for the Dunkelgelb. I don't have Dunkelgelb, and also I find the tone don't really work for between 72nd and 35th scale. So I usually use a different tone for 72nd scale, usually something a bit darker. So just coating the whole thing in the single color. Up next, doing a bit of highlighting, added a little bit of deck tan into the mixture. And this is just to hit all the raised and higher edges of things, just to give it a little bit of visual interest and change up the color tones a little bit. You know, just add a little bit of highlighting here and there, a little bit of forced. Now on top of this, I have this nice little stencil, so I'm going to use that to create the camouflage pattern. And it's quite simple, you just mask off every other part except for the panel you want to stencil. You might have to do this 1 or 2 times, depending on how far the stencil is from the actual part, but I generally found this to be okay to do. Just placing the stencil over the top, give it a few layers, and that's how it's looking at the moment. I gotta say, those stencils are really nice. Up next, the decals. There's not really much to the decals. I think there's about 5 of them in total. The decals for the kit are fairly good, although the one in the rear is not that good. Adding on some spare tracks onto this, the corners here, as well as the tank jack for trying to jack up one of these things if you blow out a tire on a mine. Next up, after a clear coat, I gave the entire tank a heavy pin wash using Tamiya flat black, Jesus, as well as thinning down with terps. And with the clear coat, it allows all the paint, the wash to run everywhere, which is kind of necessary for this tank. As you can see, it has a ton of weld seam lines and raised parts and all of that, and they do get a bit lost because they're all just giant flat areas. So the wash really does help to bring out a lot of the details. I will note, you'll see that big red decal there. That's actually about 1.5 times way too big. So just an FYI if you have this kit. Next up is some chipping. I've decided to go 2 layers of chipping on this one. First up is a heavier chip with a sponge, and this is with a grey steel. I think it's Tamiya, a mixture of Tamiya grey metal and metallic grey and flat brown as a sort of pseudo rust effect, and just using the sponge for heavier chipping. And then after that, lighter chipping using a lighter tone of the base color, and just using this messed up paintbrush, and just adding some lighter chipping around the edges where, and this is just where paint chips have come off but haven't gone all the way down to the metal. Next up for weathering, mixed up some burnt umber pigment with water until it becomes a wash like this. And what I do is I like to just slather around everywhere that I want want it to go into, say like a pin wash or something like that, but also where I want a harsh line for where some wet mud has dried off, or you have dust effect and stuff like that. So this is primarily a dust effect for me. So when it's dry, you get a stiff brush and you brush it in the direction that you want streaking to be as well. So of course this is going to be up and down, as you know, these tanks weren't particularly that fast, so you wouldn't get a sort of horizontal. You'd primarily get vertical, straight up and down. So, and I like this one. I like this effect that I do because it just adds a dry dust effect to everything. Again, you might have to go over things once or twice, maybe even 3 times, depending on how much you want it built up. And after that, I always lock everything in place with some pigment fixer, as if you leave it without being fixed in place, you will get it everywhere every time you touch it. I've ruined many things doing that. I have a few models in the stash that have bare pigment and I don't like to touch them. And I'm just giving everything a second coat. I just wanted a heavier dust effect than I had before, and with the pigment fixer it gives it a nice surface to actually build up on. It gives it a bit of a rougher texture. This layer I didn't do pigment fixer to it, so when I was handling this, you do have to be really careful, because once you get pigment onto things, you are never ever getting it off. I've ruined many t-shirts doing this, so always be careful when using pigments. Road wheels go on, and these weren't the best. The fit for the road wheels and the suspension weren't that good. Onto the tracks now. I decided to use the Lincoln length as opposed to the rubber band tracks, and you will see me struggling here. So you have individual links to go around the sprocket reels. The sprocket reels have a key system, so they lock into place, and the teeth don't line up. Just an FYI, so your tracks will end up looking a bit angled. And this large piece down at the bottom has been molded back to front. So the tracks go one way, and the track teeth and the connectors go the other way. So yes, a lot of super glue was needed, and I regret using these tracks. After that, I mixed up a dark steel color and painted them all in a dark steel, which is going to be quickly covered with weathering. Again, using my watered down pigment effect. This one, you just brush it heavily over everything. Then when you let it dry, and then you take either a cloth around a finger and you basically wipe it off. For that, and that's for all the raised parts where it naturally come off. And what I like to do as well with these steel links is get a graphite pencil and just hit every raised part just to bring back some steel look to it. It's actually quite a nice effect. The camera is not showing it that well, but it looks much better in real life. But it's an effect that I quite enjoy doing as well. It's quite relaxing. After that, with the exhaust, I got some black pigments and just dry brushed it up and down just to show some sort of like heat and soot transfer. And that's pretty much the tank done. Up next, I've got this base that I pre-made for another build that I never used it for. So first off, I like to give it all a coat of a dark brown, and that's going to start with our ground effect layers after that. But first, I made a border using this MDF board that I had lying around, and then I can fill it all with some AK Desert Sand Effect acrylic paste. This has been left over, so it's not in the best condition, so it needed to be used up, and this is probably one of the better ones to do it on, as you'll see in a minute. Once it's dry, I gave it all a sort of darkish chocolate brown, and this is where we're going to start with our ground effects. This vignette is going to be primarily tall grass, but you do need the colors underneath it just in case something does show through. After that, I like to give it all a sort of dry brush with the same pigment color that I used on the tracks and suspension of the Ferdinand. That means you just get a bit of uniformity within the weathering, because you don't want to weather your tank one color and have the road a different color. It's not going to look pretty good. And I do actually quite like using pigments for ground effects. After that, I sealed it all with pigment fixer. What this does is it sort of also blends the pigments into the paint underneath as well, and you get a little bit of paint color modulation within the mud effects. And after that, when it was all nice and dry, using some sticky tack, sort of thickened PVA, I gave it all a generous coating using the applicator. And then with the static applicator, I gave it all about 5 layers of 7mm grass just to build up the height. Oh, and also an FYI, during this procedure, I also shocked myself with the applicator. If you've ever done that before, you know what it's like. After that, I wanted a dry late summer look for Kursk in 43. So I gave everything, I believe I used a mixture of flat brown and deck tan. And this is to start with the darker color that's going to be underneath with the shadows. After that, just adding more and more deck tan into the mix and start giving the grass some more highlights. You'll also see the indents. I did use the Ferdinand to create indents so it looks like it's driven through the grass instead of just magically appeared. I did a final coat with I believe a very light desert sand color at the very top to add a slight yellowish tinge to the very top of the grass. And then I also added a little bit of green to it, just so it looks like it's sort of starting to turn. I was just playing around with the colors, really, just trying to make it look so it's, you know, that sort of late summer grass that's just starting to die off because it hasn't rained in a long time, which during Kursk it didn't. After that, again, using the burnt umber pigments, I went through and dusted the track lines, just to make it look like the tracks from the Ferdinand have dug the ground up and disturbed the dirt and stuff like that. So just trying to help with that uniformity within the pigments and the weathering. Lastly, I gave the borders of the vignette, we'll call it, I think it's vignette, a nice dark, not quite black, but very dark charcoal. And lastly, I 3D printed off a title or a label, whatever you want to call it, using Tinkercad and my 3D printer to give it the name Kursk 43. And with that, a very quick build and a very quick video. And before we get to the reveal, I just want to shout out my Patreon supporters. My paying member, Floki's Models, and my 2 followers, Scott Bryant and Dave. Big shout out to you guys for support. And if you want to join my Patreon, you'll find me under Columbus Models. You'll have access to all the STLs that I currently have on Cults 3Ds for free, as part of that package, as well as any other new things as well. And I will be constantly adding on new designs that I make, which you will have access to. as well as just showing some support. I think I've got it set to, I think, $4 a month or something like that. So it's not too much, and I really appreciate the help. So here we have my Trumpeter 72nd scale Sd.Kfz 184 Ferdinand, and what it is depicted here during the Battle of Kursk in 1943. Overall, this kit is fairly decent if you can find it for a cheap price. Again, there are some fit issues here and there. Decals are a bit oversized, tracks are diabolical, so use the rubber bands. Can't believe I'm saying that. But also, you will notice in the background that little red ribbon. So this is one of the models that I took if you'd seen my New Zealand's IPMS National Wellington blog. I took this along into the competition and ended up with a commended. I was talking with the judges afterwards, and they said that the only thing that stopped me from getting a third place and only got a commended was I didn't dry brush the spare tracks to make them a bit more metallic, so that's on me. But otherwise, they said they quite liked it, especially the camouflage scheme. But I hope you guys agree with the judges that with the assessment for a commended, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.